If you feel like summer used to last 3 whole centuries, but now January and November seem to happen on the exact same Tuesday, you are not losing your mind. Your brain is actively altering how it measures time, and science has finally cracked the code on why your personal clock speeds up as you get older. Think back to when you were 8 years old. A single summer vacation felt like an epic movie trilogy with extended director cuts. You could spend 4 hours sitting on the grass looking at a beetle, and by the time you walked inside, you felt like a battle-tested explorer returning from a foreign land. Fast forward to today, and you blink once in March, only to suddenly realize you need to buy holiday presents again. Where did those 8 months go? Did someone secretly steal our calendar pages? The answer turns out to be a fascinating mix of math, brain chemistry, visual eye movements, and the sneaky way our minds edit our own memories. The first part of the puzzle comes down to pure mathematics, through a concept proposed back in 1897 called Janet's Law. It sounds simple, but it breaks your brain a little when you really think about it. To a 5-year-old child, 1 year represents a whopping 20% of their entire life experience. Every single birthday brings a massive, noticeable chunk of brand new existence. But by the time you reach 50 years old, 1 year is just 2% of your total life. So, mathematically speaking, a year to a 50-year-old feels 10 times shorter than a year feels to a 5-year-old, simply because it is being compared to a much larger pile of existing memories. If you buy one single cookie when you only have 5 cookies, that new cookie feels like a huge addition to your snack stash. But if you already have 100 cookies, adding one more cookie barely registers. Your brain measures time as a proportional fraction of what you have already lived. Now, if that was the entire story, we could all just blame math and go home. But scientists knew there was something much deeper happening inside our heads. Because time does not just feel fast when we look back at our lives. It actually feels like it is moving faster in real time while we are living it. And that brings us to the visual camera inside your brain. Researchers at Duke University discovered that as we age, the physical networks of nerves in our brains grow larger and more complex. At the same time, electrical signals face slightly more resistance as they travel through these longer pathways. What does that mean for your perception of time? It means your brain takes in and processes fewer visual images per second than it did when you were young. Think of your eyes making tiny rapid movements, called saccades, several times every single second. When you are young, your brain processes those micro movements super fast, capturing a massive stream of visual information. Imagine filming a video with a high-end camera at 60 frames per second. Everything looks smooth, detailed, and full of subtle action. That is your brain as a kid. You are taking in millions of visual signals, processing every shadow, every texture, and every movement around you. As you get older, however, your internal processing speed slows down, effectively reducing your visual camera to maybe 30 frames per second, or even fewer. When your brain receives fewer microimages in the same span of real clock time, it assumes less time has passed. Since the clock on the wall keeps ticking at the exact same speed, the physical world seems to accelerate right past you. You are literally recording the world at a lower frame rate, which makes the mental video playback faster. And speaking of playback, there is another major thief of adult time: the brain's obsessive need to save internal storage space. Your brain is a remarkably efficient energy consumer. It uses about 20% of your body's total energy, even though it only makes up about 2% of your total weight. To conserve that precious fuel, your brain loves shortcuts, and its absolute favorite shortcut is routine. When you experience something for the very first time, like your first day at a new job, your first trip to an unfamiliar city, or even the first time you tasted a strange fruit, your brain goes into maximum recording mode. It fires off new neural connections, stores vivid sensory details, and captures everything with crisp clarity. That is why childhood feels so long in hindsight. Almost everything you did was a brand new input. You were constantly downloading software updates and running zero cached files. As an adult, however, your typical day is packed with predictable routines. You drive the exact same route to work, drink out of the same mug, sit in the same chair, and scroll through the same phone apps. When your brain encounters these familiar scenarios, it essentially hits the snooze button. It says, I already know how this commute works, so I do not need to log any of this into long-term storage. Instead of creating 8 hours of detailed memories during a typical workday, your brain compresses the entire experience into a single summary file titled, Worked, Ate Lunch, Came Home. When you look back at your week on Friday evening, your brain searches for memories, finds only 2 or 3 distinct files, and concludes, wow, that week flew by in 5 minutes. This creates a bizarre psychological phenomenon known as the holiday paradox. Have you ever gone on a 7-day vacation to a completely new place, and while you were there, time seemed to stretch out forever, but the moment you unpacked your bags back home, it felt like you were barely gone? That happens because during the trip, your brain was inundated with novel stimuli. New smells, unfamiliar street signs, foreign languages, and different foods forced your brain out of autopilot mode. It logged thousands of fresh memory files. While you were living it, time felt packed with dense experience. In hindsight, that 1 week feels as long as 3 months of your normal daily routine. Chemicals in your brain play a huge role in this time warp too, particularly dopamine. Dopamine is the primary neurotransmitter responsible for reward, motivation, and excitement. It also acts as an internal metronome for your central nervous system. When dopamine levels are high, your internal clock ticks faster relative to the outside world. Kids naturally have much higher baseline levels of dopamine pumping through their neural circuits, which keeps their internal engine humming at high speed. Because their internal clock is ticking so fast, 60 seconds of real-world clock time feels like a long, drawn-out affair. As we grow older, our baseline dopamine levels gradually decline. With a slower internal metronome, real-world seconds pass by before our brain feels like it is ready for the next tick. The result? The external world appears to speed up around us. There is also the matter of simple human attention. When you were young, you spent a massive amount of time waiting. You waited for the school bell to ring, you waited for summer vacation to start, and you waited for your birthday to arrive. When you actively pay attention to time, time slows down to a painful crawl. A watched pot never boils, and a watched clock never moves. As adults, we almost never just sit and wait for time to pass. We multitask constantly. We listen to podcasts while cooking, answer work emails while sitting in traffic, and scroll through social media while standing in line at the grocery store. By filling every spare microsecond with intentional distraction, we stop paying attention to time itself. And when you stop paying attention to time, it slips away quietly without leaving a trace. So, does this mean we are all condemned to watch our remaining years fly past us like a hyperspeed slideshow? Absolutely not. Now that you know the hidden mechanisms behind this mental time warp, you can actually use them to put the brakes on your perception of time starting today. The secret weapon is deliberate novelty. You do not need to quit your job or move to a remote island to trick your brain into slowing down time. Small, consistent injections of new experiences force your brain to switch off autopilot and start recording detailed memory files again. Take a completely different route on your evening walk. Try cooking a recipe from a cuisine you have never tasted before. Learn a physical skill, like playing an instrument or juggling, which forces your brain to build entirely new neural pathways. Even changing up tiny habits, like taking up a new hobby or visiting a neighborhood you have never explored, signals to your brain that something unique is happening. Another powerful trick is practicing present moment awareness. When you actively focus on the physical details of what you are doing right now, like feeling the temperature of the water while washing dishes, or noticing the exact sounds around you, you force your internal camera to record at a higher frame rate. You shift your brain out of low-energy, compressed video mode and back into uncompressed, high-definition recording. It turns out time is not just a rigid line on a clock. It is a flexible experience manufactured inside your mind. Time feels like it speeds up, not because life is short, but because adulthood gets comfortable, predictable, and efficient. When you trade novelty for routine, you trade detailed memories for mental compression. So the next time you wonder where the month went, remember that your brain was just trying to save energy on familiar territory. Before you go, what is one specific memory from your childhood that still feels like it lasted an eternity? And what brand new thing are you going to try this week to slow time down? Drop your answer in the comments below. I would love to read it. If you enjoyed learning about how your brain tricks your perception of time, please give this video a like. Share it with a friend who always complains about how fast the year is going, and subscribe for more mind-bending deep dives. Thanks for watching, and make today count.